The Death Pact. Carlos Mendoza stared at the blood handprint on his bathroom mirror, his heart hammering against his ribs. His phone glowed in the darkness, displaying a text message from a number he'd blocked weeks ago. "Thanks for giving me the address. He said it was too late. The world is better without me in it. Goodbye, Carlos." The message had been sent at 3 a.m. hours after Miguel Rivera had been found dead. 6 months earlier, life couldn't have been better for Carlos. At 29, he'd built a successful online business selling tech accessories while maintaining his day job at Aztec Solutions, a respected financial firm in Mexico City. His hard work had finally paid off when he purchased his dream car, a sleek black sports coupe he affectionately called Batimobile. That fateful Monday morning, Carlos drove his new car into the company parking lot, the morning sun glinting off its polished surface. As he stepped into the orientation room for new hires, a familiar face caught his eye. "Miguel?" The man turned his eyes, lighting up momentarily before dimming. "Carlos, my God, how many years has it been?" They embraced awkwardly. Miguel Rivera, Carlos's elementary school friend before his family moved away. The coincidence seemed miraculous, especially when they discovered Carlos's mother and Miguel's mother were distant cousins. "Almost 15 years, Carlos replied, "since elementary school graduation. We bumped into each other at that bar in 2019, remember?" Carlos nodded. A brief encounter, phone numbers exchanged, promises to keep in touch that faded into the busy backdrop of life. "Destiny bringing us back together," Miguel smiled. "So what have you been doing that landed you here with us?" The orientation passed comfortably with a familiar face. At lunch, they sat together in the cafeteria, sharing stories of the years between. "I started an online tech accessories store," Carlos said proudly. "Began in my bedroom, now I have a small warehouse. Did well enough last year to treat myself." He smiled. "Got myself a little gift." "Oh," Miguel raised an eyebrow. "The black sports car outside, like those Hot Wheels you used to collect. You'd love it." Carlos didn't notice how Miguel's expression darkened. For a split second, his friend's smile became forced, strained. "Quite the success story." Miguel nodded. "You always were the lucky one. Just hard work. What about you, family?" Miguel shrugged. "Nothing special. Making ends meet." He checked his watch. "I should get going. But listen, Palacios is having a party tonight. You should come." Carlos smiled. "I'll check with my girlfriend first." As Miguel walked away, Carlos couldn't help feeling something odd hanging in the air. Was that a flicker of envy in Miguel's eyes, or just his imagination? On his drive home, Carlos's phone buzzed. A message from Miguel. "My mother asked about you. She wants to know if your mom is well." Carlos smiled. They were still family, however distant. That evening he told his mother about the unexpected reunion. Mrs. Mendoza remained silent for a long moment. "You need to be careful with that side of the family," she finally said. "They're different from us." "Different how?" "Just keep your distance, Carlos. I don't want you getting too involved in their lives." Carlos laughed. "Mom, it's 2024. There's no ancient family feud or witch doctor rumors anymore." Mrs. Mendoza sighed. "There are things about this world you don't understand, son. Very old traditions that still exist today." Carlos shook his head. Women of the older generation and their superstitions. The music pounded through Palacios's apartment. The party was in full swing, but Carlos couldn't spot Miguel anywhere. He chatted with a few new colleagues, feeling somewhat out of place. "Carlos." Miguel appeared behind him. "You made it." His old friend guided him to a corner where a small group was gathered. Carlos noticed they weren't company employees. "This is my friend," Miguel introduced. "We grew up together in Jalisco." Carlos shook hands all around, feeling their appraising gazes. Miguel handed him a glass filled with deep red liquid. "Try this, specialty from my hometown." Carlos took a sip. Sweet, spicy, with an unfamiliar flavor he couldn't identify, not much alcohol. "Good. What is it?" Miguel smiled mysteriously. "Family recipe. Drink up." Carlos finished the glass. Soon after, he felt dizzy. A sharp pain shot through his head, and the room began to spin. Carlos had never been drunk like this, especially after just one drink. "I need to go," he stumbled. "Let me call you a taxi," Miguel offered. "No, I can drive." "Are you sure?" Carlos nodded, missing the exchanged glances between Miguel and his friends. He staggered out the door down the elevator. The world seemed viewed through a foggy lens. Carlos got in his car, trying to focus. He drove off in a half-conscious state, unaware of another car following. At a curve, Carlos stepped on the brake, but the pedal felt jammed. He pushed harder, but to no avail. The car slammed into a divider, bounced, and stopped. Hitting the airbag, Carlos blacked out. In his delirium, he found himself in a dark place thick with fog. The darkness coalesced into a form something neither human nor animal. It had long horns, blood-red eyes, clawed hands. The upper body resembled a human's, but its legs were covered in coarse hair like a wild boar's ending in goat hooves. The creature laughed a sound like metal scraping against metal. Then it lunged at Carlos, its bony hands gripping his throat. Carlos couldn't breathe, couldn't scream. An icy coldness spread from his feet throughout his body, not ordinary cold, but the chill of death itself. "In the name of Christ," Carlos whispered, "I ask you." The creature roared in anger, tightening its grip on Carlos's throat. But Carlos struggled to continue, fear mixing with childhood memories from church. "Protect me from all evil." Everything vanished. Carlos awakened in his car, in pain but alive. Police lights flashed, an officer tapping on the window. "Can you step out of the vehicle, sir?" The next morning, Carlos's mother paid his bail and drove him home. "Thank God no one was hurt," she said. "The car is a total loss." Carlos nodded, his head still pounding. "I don't understand what happened. The brakes wouldn't work." "You were drinking and driving." "I had one glass, Mom, and it barely had any alcohol." Mrs. Mendoza was silent for a moment. "Who gave you that drink?" "Miguel." "Have you forgotten what I told you?" Her voice dropped. "That family is not like us." 2 weeks later, Carlos returned to work. He took the bus, as his beloved Batimobile now lay in a scrapyard. Everyone treated him normally, but Carlos noticed Miguel watching him differently, as if waiting for something. "Having a small get-together this Friday," Miguel said at lunch. "You should come. Blow off some steam after the accident." Carlos shook his head. "I don't think that's a good idea." "Hey, so you're scared now, one little accident, and you're terrified?" Miguel laughed. "Or is it that your mother won't allow it?" Carlos felt anger rising. He wasn't a child needing permission. "Fine, I'll be there." The party was at Miguel's apartment, a small place decorated with strange symbols Carlos didn't recognize. Many faces from the previous party were there, watching Carlos with peculiar interest. This time, Carlos refused every drink Miguel offered. He held a sealed soda can and drank only from that. As the evening progressed, Carlos noticed the atmosphere growing stranger. People whispering, staring at him. He decided to leave. "Leaving so soon?" Miguel blocked his path. "The party's just starting." "I am not feeling well," Carlos said. Miguel smiled. "Be careful out there. There are dangerous things tonight." Walking home in the darkness, Carlos felt like someone was following him. He quickened his pace but still heard footsteps behind. When he turned around, no one was there. Suddenly, 3 strangers emerged from a dark alley. "Wallet! Now!" one said. Carlos tried to run, but they were faster. One grabbed him while another pulled out a knife. "Don't make this difficult." Carlos handed over his wallet, but the man with the knife still stabbed him in the side. A burning pain spread outward as Carlos fell to the ground. They took his belongings and left him bleeding on the pavement. Fortunately, a couple passing by discovered him and called emergency services. At the hospital, doctors said the wound wasn't life-threatening, but Carlos had lost a lot of blood. That was just the beginning. Over the following months, Carlos seemed cursed. He slipped from a roof while making repairs, nearly breaking his neck. A week later, his shoulder dislocated during a workout. Then one night he was beaten without reason outside a bar, a place he hadn't even entered. His girlfriend left him saying Carlos had changed, become distant and moody. His relationship with his mother grew tense as he continued to meet Miguel despite her warnings. Carlos's small business began to collapse. Customers complained about damaged goods. Suppliers suddenly canceled contracts. Then came his main job. Carlos was fired for repeated absences due to accidents. Things became so bad that Carlos began to doubt his own sanity. He often woke at night feeling someone standing in the corner of his room. The nightmares returned, the same demonic creature from the car accident night, always trying to strangle him. By the 4th month since reuniting with Miguel, Carlos barely recognized himself in the mirror. Gaunt face, dark circles under his eyes, hair falling out in large patches. He had lost everything: job, business, girlfriend, and nearly his mind. One morning, while attempting to find new work at a coffee shop, he met Lucia, an old college friend. "Carlos." She looked at him in shock. "What happened to you?" Carlos told her everything about Miguel, about the strange string of misfortunes. He stopped short of mentioning the demonic creature in his dreams, afraid Lucia would think him insane. "Something's wrong," Carlos concluded. "I can't explain it." Lucia was silent for a long moment. "Do you believe in supernatural things?" Carlos laughed bitterly. "Not before. Now I don't know any more." "My mother knows someone," Lucia said quietly. "A curandero, a traditional healer. Many people think it's superstition, but you should meet him." "I've tried everything else," Carlos sighed. "I'll try this too." Don Alejandro lived in a small house on the outskirts, surrounded by a garden of various herbs. The old man with white hair and sharp eyes greeted Carlos at the door. "You have come late," he said instead of hello. "But not too late." Carlos and Lucia sat in the simple living room. Don Alejandro stared at Carlos for a long while before speaking. "You have been marked by a very powerful entity," he said. "An entity summoned by jealousy and hatred. A man you reconnected with recently." Carlos felt a chill run down his spine. The old man knew nothing about Miguel. "How do you know?" "The shadows around you speak more than you think," Don Alejandro replied. "Your soul is being gnawed upon by an ancient magic. It began when you consumed something from this person, food or drink." Carlos remembered the deep red drink from Miguel at the first party. "But why?" Carlos whispered. "We were friends, almost family." "Sometimes the envy of family is more toxic than that of enemies," Don Alejandro said. "This one coveted what you had: success, freedom, happiness. When he couldn't have it, he wanted to destroy it." "Can you help me?" Carlos asked, his voice desperate. Don Alejandro nodded slowly. "I can try. But the ritual has progressed far. It will take time and effort to reverse." The ritual began. Don Alejandro burned herbs Carlos had never seen before, fragrant smoke filling the room. He asked Carlos to remove his shirt and used a raw egg to roll over his body, mumbling prayers in an ancient language. When he cracked the egg into a bowl, all three froze in shock. The yolk was black as coal, and within it was a small white object like a bone fragment. "You have been attacked by an unrestful spirit," Don Alejandro said gravely. "A soul bound to you through dark ritual." "How do I remove it?" Carlos asked. "I will perform a cleansing ritual, but you must promise never to contact this person again. No meeting, no talking, no accepting anything from him." Carlos nodded. "I promise." The cleansing ritual lasted several hours. Don Alejandro lit special candles, rolled another egg over Carlos, then sprinkled coarse salt and holy water around him. Finally, the old man placed his hands on Carlos's head, whispering prayers. Carlos felt a shudder run through his body as if something was being pulled out of him. A cold wind blew through the room, though the windows were closed. The candles flickered and went out. "It is done," Don Alejandro said, sweat beading on his forehead. "I have sent it back to where it came from. The summoner will face the consequences." Carlos paid and thanked the old man. On the way home, he deleted Miguel's number from his phone, blocked him on all social media platforms. He decided never to set foot in that company again. 2 weeks after meeting Don Alejandro, Carlos felt reborn. The nightmares vanished. He slept soundly for the first time in months. His hair stopped falling out, his health gradually improved. Carlos found a new job, began rebuilding his small business. His relationship with his mother improved too. Mrs. Mendoza never said, "I told you so," but she hugged her son tighter than usual. "I'm not angry with you," she said. "I was just afraid for you." "I'm sorry I didn't listen," Carlos whispered. "You knew, didn't you, about Miguel and his family?" Mrs. Mendoza nodded slowly. "There are dark traditions in that bloodline. That's why our family left Jalisco, to get away from them." Carlos didn't ask more. Some things were better left in the past. A month passed, and Carlos had almost forgotten the whole ordeal. He started dating a new girl, his business slowly growing again. Life returned to normal. Until one day, Carlos's phone rang. An unknown number. "Hello," Carlos answered. Silence on the other end for a moment, then a weak voice. "Carlos, help me!" The blood froze in Carlos's veins. It was Miguel's voice. "You shouldn't be calling me," Carlos replied, ready to hang up. "Please," Miguel whispered. "I don't know what's happening. It's chasing me." "What?" "The shadow, with the red eyes. It's choking me every night. I can't sleep, can't eat. Please, help me." Carlos trembled. He knew exactly what Miguel was describing. "That's what you sent after me," Carlos said coldly. "Now it's returned to its rightful owner. I don't understand." "You understand perfectly, Miguel. You tried to destroy my life out of jealousy. Now you face the consequences." "Please," Miguel cried. "I'm going to die." Carlos hesitated. Part of him wanted to help. After all, Miguel had once been a friend. But then he remembered everything he'd endured, the months of hell, because of Miguel's envy. "Find Don Alejandro in Colonia Santa Maria," Carlos finally said. "Maybe he can help you." "Thank you, thank you." Carlos hung up a heavy feeling in his chest. Had he done the right thing, or should he have left Miguel to suffer as he had suffered? That night Carlos dreamed of Miguel. In the dream, Miguel stood alone in darkness, trembling. Then from the darkness the horned creature appeared, its red eyes staring at Miguel. It reached out its bony hand toward Miguel, and Carlos woke up drenched in sweat. The next morning, Carlos turned on the local news. A 30-year-old man was found dead in his apartment in the Reforma district, the anchor said. Miguel Rivera, an employee at Aztec Solutions, was discovered by neighbors after hearing cries for help. Carlos turned off the TV, feeling numb. He wondered if Miguel had sought out Don Alejandro, or if it had been too late. Carlos's phone buzzed a message from the unknown number that had called last night. "Thank you for the address. He said it was too late. The world is better without me in it. Goodbye, Carlos." Carlos shuddered. The message had been sent at 3 a.m., many hours after Miguel was reportedly dead. A week later at Miguel's funeral, Carlos stood at a distance, not wanting to meet his family. As the crowd dispersed, he approached the grave, placing a flower. "I forgive you, Miguel," Carlos whispered. As he turned to leave, he saw an older woman watching him, Miguel's mother. She approached, her eyes cold. "This is all your fault," she said. "I don't understand. You think you've won? Think you can return magic without consequences?" She laughed bitterly. "You think my son's death is the end?" Carlos backed away. "I don't want any trouble, ma'am." "Trouble has already found you, Carlos Mendoza," she whispered. "My son's soul will never rest, and a soul that cannot rest seeks revenge." Carlos hurried away from the cemetery, trying to forget the woman's threats. But that night he woke in the early hours feeling an intense cold. In the dark corner of his room he saw a figure standing, eyes glowing red. "Miguel," Carlos whispered. The shadow didn't answer, but when Carlos turned on the light, no one was there. Only a wet handprint on the mirror, a handprint of blood. Night after night, Carlos still hears whispers in the wind. "I'm back, Carlos, and I will never leave." The lost comb. Elena Mendez jolted awake, her body paralyzed despite her mind being fully conscious. The bedroom lay in darkness, moonlight casting strange shadows across the walls. Though she couldn't move a muscle, her eyes darted frantically around the room, sensing a presence somewhere in the darkness. Then she heard it a whisper from the darkest corner, repeating the prayer she had been silently reciting in her mind. "Our Father, who art in heaven." It whispered, the voice distorted and hollow like metal scraping against metal. "Hallowed be thy name." Elena tried to scream, but no sound escaped her frozen throat. The presence moved closer, though she couldn't see it, just feel its weight pressing down on the air around her. "Pray for me." The voice continued, becoming increasingly distorted. "Pray for me. Pray for me." With one final mental push, Elena broke through the paralysis, sitting bolt upright in bed, her body drenched in sweat and her heart threatening to burst from her chest. The room was empty, silent. "Just sleep paralysis," she whispered to herself, though she knew deep down it was far more than that. At 26, Elena had built a comfortable life for herself in Mexico City. A talented graphic designer for a digital marketing agency, she lived independently in a modest apartment in the Juarez neighborhood, an achievement that made her quietly proud. Her colleagues saw her as level-headed and rational, not someone who would believe in the supernatural. What they didn't know was Elena's secret fascination with horror stories. For nearly a decade, she had been an avid listener of Relatos de la Noche, Tales of the Night, a popular podcast featuring paranormal encounters. Her sister had introduced her to it during their high school commutes, and Elena had been hooked ever since. "The strangest thing," Elena confided to her journal the morning after her paralysis episode, "is how similar my experience was to the stories on the podcast. Last month I heard humming in an empty house, exactly like the most terrifying tale ever featured. And a few weeks ago I heard a voice warning me about my uncle's health, just like that mortuary worker during the pandemic." She closed her journal, unsettled by the connections, but determined to continue her day normally. After a quick shower, she noticed her hair falling out, more than usual clumps gathering around the drain. Stress, she decided. Nothing more. The following Friday evening, Elena was walking home through the crowded streets of Juarez after working late. Street vendors were packing up for the night, the aroma of tacos and churros still lingering in the air. Lost in thought about an upcoming project deadline, she didn't notice the older woman watching her from across the street until their eyes met. The woman had long silver hair, dark eyes, and a face lined with wrinkles. She wore a deep red dress and numerous metal bracelets that clinked together as she unexpectedly crossed the street, heading straight for Elena. "Young lady?" the woman called, her voice raspy. "Young lady with the blue bag?" Elena paused, uncomfortable but curious. In Mexico City, random encounters on the street weren't uncommon, but something about this woman's direct gaze unsettled her. "Can I help you?" Elena asked when the woman approached. The elderly eyes studied Elena as if reading an open book. "You lost a comb, didn't you?" Elena blinked in confusion. "Excuse me." "A comb. You lost it months ago. Perhaps only now you remember it's missing." Elena's mind raced. She had indeed lost her favorite comb, a black wooden one, a gift from her mother around February. But how could this stranger possibly know? "Yes, I did lose a comb," Elena admitted, feeling a cold shiver run down her spine. The woman nodded as if she had expected this answer. "And with the hair still caught in that comb, they made a trabajo for you. They've bound a spirit to you." "Trabajo spirit," Elena repeated, both frightened and skeptical. "Are you talking about witchcraft? Call it what you will, young lady. But that's why your hair falls out in clumps, why you don't feel well despite taking care of yourself. That's why you feel someone watching you constantly." Elena took a step back, alarmed. How did this woman know about her hair loss, about the constant sensation of being observed? "Who are you?" she asked, voice trembling. "My name doesn't matter. What matters is that you need help. You need to know who did this to you to protect yourself." The woman extracted a small piece of paper from her pocket and handed it to Elena. "This is my number. When you're ready to learn the truth, call me." Elena reluctantly accepted the paper. "How do I know you're not trying to scam me?" You don't need to believe me, the woman said, beginning to walk away. But you should ask yourself why all your plans have failed recently, why friends avoid you, why colleagues gossip behind your back, why you've started hearing whispers in the night. Elena stood frozen as the woman disappeared into the crowd. She had told no one about the whispers. That evening, unable to sleep, Elena called her best friend from university, Adriana. She knew about my comb, Audrey, Elena explained after recounting the encounter, and my hair falling out, and the whispers at night. There's no way she could know these things. That's definitely creepy, Adriana agreed. But Mexico City is full of scammers. She probably observed you for a while, noticed your hair thinning, and made educated guesses. Maybe, Elena sighed, twisting the piece of paper with the woman's number between her fingers. But what if she's right? What if something is attached to me? If you're really worried, we could check it out. But not with her. She's clearly after your money. What do you suggest? Mercado de Sonora, Adriana said decisively. If you want legitimate answers about this stuff, that's where we should go. My aunt had a similar experience once. People laughed until she visited a real curandera, and things improved. A curandera, a healer. Sort of. Listen, it might sound crazy, but we're in Mexico. These ancient beliefs are still powerful whether we acknowledge them or not. Elena considered this. So what should I do? It's up to you, Adriana shrugged. But if it were me, I'd investigate. What's the worst that could happen? Wasted time, the best outcome is finding the reason for these strange occurrences. You're right, Elena sighed. I'll call her. 3 days later, Elena and Adriana ventured to Mercado de Sonora, the notorious market known for magic items, charms, and traditional remedies. The moment they stepped inside, Elena felt the air grow heavy, almost viscous. Adriana held her hand tightly as they navigated past stalls selling animals, strange herbs, and religious figures. The mingled scents of incense, candle wax, and raw meat created an odd, disorienting mixture. As they reached the area where traditional healers operated, another elderly woman suddenly approached Elena. You have a spirit attached to you, she stated without introduction. Elena and Adriana exchanged shocked glances. How did this woman know when they hadn't even spoken? How can I be sure? Elena asked. A cleansing will tell you, the woman replied. 500 pesos. Elena hesitated, but Adriana nodded encouragingly. Let's try it. They followed the woman to a small booth screened by colorful fabrics. Inside, a modest altar displayed images of the Virgin of Guadalupe saints and strange creatures Elena didn't recognize. Take off your jacket and stand in the center, the woman instructed. Elena complied, feeling a chill despite the warmth inside the booth. The woman took a chicken egg from a basket and began rolling it over Elena's body from head to foot, across her shoulders, down her arms. She murmured prayers in a mixed language of Spanish and something older, possibly Nahuatl, the language of the Aztecs. After about 10 minutes, she stopped holding the egg in her hand. Now we will see. She cracked the egg into a glass bowl. Elena and Adriana leaned forward, both gasping in shock. The yolk was black as coal, with the white clouded and streaked with red lines like blood. A foul odor rose from the bowl. This is not something medical science can explain, the woman said gravely. You have been amarrado, bound. Someone has used your hair to connect you to an unrestful spirit. That's why you feel watched, why you cannot sleep, why your health deteriorates. Who would do this? Elena asked, voice trembling. I cannot say exactly who, but this is the work of someone who knows you, someone close, not a stranger. Elena felt a cold wave wash over her. How can I remove it? A more complex ritual is needed, the woman said, and you need to know who did this to protect yourself in the future. How much? Adriana asked bluntly. 5,000 pesos. Too expensive. Adriana shook her head. We need to think about this. As they left Mercado de Sonora, Elena felt weighed down by exhaustion. What do you think? She asked Adriana. I don't know, Adriana admitted. That egg was not normal, but 5,000 pesos is too much. So what do I do now? Call the first woman, Adriana suggested. She already knew about your condition before we went to the market. Maybe she can help for less. Elena nodded, pulling out her phone. The woman answered immediately, as if waiting for the call. "I'll meet you in 1 hour," she said, "at Alameda Central." Alameda Central Plaza bustled with tourists and locals enjoying the afternoon. Elena and Adriana sat on a stone bench watching the crowd. Right on time, the strange woman appeared, still in the same deep red dress from their first encounter. "You went to Mercado de Sonora," she stated, not a question. "Yes," Elena nodded. "They said I've been amarrado, bound to a spirit." "Correct. And now you believe—" Elena looked at Adriana, then back at the woman. "I don't know what to believe, but I know what I saw." "Good," the woman nodded. "Follow me. We cannot talk here." She led them to a small cafe nearby, requesting a table in the corner. After ordering 3 hot chocolates, she began speaking. "Someone is jealous of you, Elena. Someone you consider a friend. They took your hair from the lost comb and created a trabajo, a witchcraft working to harm you." "But why?" Elena asked. "I have nothing worth being jealous of. You are young, beautiful, have a good job, independence. You don't even realize how many people look at you with envious eyes. I saw them when I observed you at your office. You watched me." Elena was shocked. "Only to confirm my intuition. I have special abilities. I sense things others cannot. And when I saw you on the street that day, I saw a dark shadow following you." Elena swallowed hard. "Can you help me?" "I can—" The woman nodded. "But it won't be easy, nor cheap." "How much?" Adriana asked, voice full of suspicion. 10,000 pesos. "What?" Adriana nearly shouted. "That's half of Elena's monthly salary. That is the price to remove a bound spirit," the woman said, unwavering. "The person who paid to harm her paid a similar amount." "We don't have that kind of money," Elena said, feeling desperate. "Do you have jewelry, perfume, anything of value?" The woman asked, her eyes suddenly cold and sharp. "I have a silver necklace," Elena said, "and maybe about 2,000 pesos in my account." "Not enough," the woman shook her head, "but perhaps we can arrange something. Do you have savings? Can family help?" Elena felt uncomfortable with the woman's persistent focus on money. "I need time to think." The woman nodded, but her eyes showed clear irritation. "Don't wait too long. Your condition will only worsen." Leaving the cafe, Elena felt conflicted. On one hand, everything the woman said seemed to explain the strange occurrences in her life. On the other, the obsession with payment made her suspicious. "She's scamming you," Adriana said definitively when they returned to Elena's apartment. "This is clearly a fraud. But how does she know so much about me? She could have been stalking you. She might know someone at your office. Or she's simply making educated guesses based on obvious signs." Elena wasn't entirely convinced, but she nodded. "You might be right." That night, Elena decided to call her sister Isabella. She had married and moved to Guadalajara, a few hours' drive from Mexico City. "An old woman says you've been cursed," Isabella repeated after hearing the story. "Are you serious, Elena? I know it sounds crazy, but—" "It doesn't sound crazy. It is crazy. How can you believe in such things?" "I'm not saying I believe," Elena protested. "But all these strange occurrences in the black egg—" "All tricks," Isabella said dismissively. "They can make eggs change color through many methods. That's science, not magic." Elena sighed. "I don't know what to think anymore." That night Elena dreamed. In her dream she stood in a cemetery. A shadowy figure led her to a freshly dug grave. When she looked inside, Elena saw herself lying there, pale and motionless. She woke up drenched in sweat, heart pounding like a hammer. Strangely, when she checked her phone, she saw 3 new messages from Isabella sent at 3 a.m. "Elena, I just had a very strange dream about you. I dreamed you were sick and Dad and his wife took you to a doctor. To reach the clinic, they had to pass a church and cemetery. There, a dark shadow pulled you into the cemetery. Dad had to dig a hole to save you. Call me as soon as you wake up." Trembling, Elena called her sister. I dreamed about a cemetery, too, she said as soon as Isabella answered. I saw myself lying in a grave. My God, Isabella whispered, and Roberto had a similar dream. Roberto was her husband. What do you mean? He dreamed you were standing in a dark room, someone cutting your hair, the fallen strands turning into little snakes. Elena felt ice cold. Isabella, I think I should talk to Dad. I already called him. He's very worried. He wants you to come to Hidalgo immediately. There's a woman there, a real curandera, not those scammers in Mexico City. She has helped many members of our family since before we were born. But I can't just take time off work, Elena protested. This is serious, Elena, trust me. After the call, Elena felt more confused than ever. How could Isabella and Roberto share the same dream about her that went beyond mere coincidence? She called her boss requesting time off for a family emergency and booked a bus ticket to Hidalgo for the following day. But before leaving, she decided to gather more information. Elena called the strange woman once more. I don't have 10,000 pesos, she said bluntly. Oh, but I want to know who did this to me. If you don't have money, I cannot help you, the woman replied coldly. Please, Elena pleaded, just tell me who. I'll find a way to protect myself. The woman was silent for a moment. Perhaps we can arrange something different. Come to my house tonight alone. I will tell you everything. Elena felt uneasy about this request, but curiosity won out. Fine, I'll come, but I'll let my friend know where I am. As you wish, the woman replied, sounding annoyed, but only you may enter my house. The woman sent her address, a house in the Doctore district not far from where Elena lived. She messaged Adriana informing her of the plan and promising to call every 30 minutes to confirm her safety. When Elena arrived, she felt a heaviness surrounding the house even heavier than at Mercado de Sonora. A sense of dread rose within her, urging her to run. But Elena had come too far to turn back. The woman opened the door before Elena could knock. Come in, she said, eyes scanning behind Elena as if checking she had come alone. Inside the house was dark and hot, filled with the smell of incense and herbs. An elaborate altar with images of saints' candles and strange objects occupied one wall. Sit down, the woman pointed to a chair. Did you bring the egg as I requested? Elena nodded, taking a chicken egg from her bag. The woman took it carefully, placing it in a small bowl. Now I will perform another ritual, she said. It will show us who has harmed you. She began rolling the egg over Elena's body, similar to the woman at Mercado de Sonora. But this time she also drew strange symbols on Elena's forehead and palms with a fragrant oil. Throughout the ritual, the woman repeatedly emphasized the necessity of trusting her, that the ritual's effectiveness depended on Elena's faith. She also frequently inquired about Elena's financial situation. You really have no savings, she asked between prayers, or expensive perfume, perhaps gold jewelry? Elena grew increasingly uncomfortable. The ritual lasted nearly an hour, and when the woman finally cracked the egg, Elena was hardly surprised to see the yolk black as coal. What truly horrified her was a small white object in the black yolk, like a tiny bone fragment. This is human bone, the woman said gravely. This trabajo is very powerful, very dangerous. You must decide now, do we return it to the sender, bury it, or leave it as is? Elena stared at the bone fragment, feeling nauseated. I don't know. We must return it, the woman insisted. It's the only way for you to be free. Return it to whom? This trabajo cost at least 30,000 pesos, the woman said, ignoring Elena's question. Someone must hate you very much to spend such an amount. Elena backed away as the woman moved closer, her eyes suddenly greedy, almost maniacal. Are you sure you have no money in your purse or in your wallet? I only have bus fare home, Elena stammered. I told you already. Then you will have to pay a similar amount to remove the curse, the woman said harshly. 30,000 pesos. You can borrow from family. They wouldn't want you to die, would they? Die? Elena's mouth fell open. That is what will happen if we don't act quickly. This spirit will gradually drain your life force until you're nothing but a shadow of yourself. Elena stood up. I need time to think. I'll talk to my family. There is no time, the woman almost growled. Decide now. The woman's crazed look terrified Elena. She grabbed her bag. I have to go. I'll contact you later. As Elena moved toward the door, the woman gripped her arm. Don't think you can run from this. No one else can help you. Only me. Elena yanked her arm free and ran outside, heart pounding. She ran all the way home, not daring to look back. As soon as she reached her apartment, her phone rang. She looked at the screen, the strange woman. She declined the call, but the phone rang immediately again and again. Messages began appearing. You cannot escape this. Only I can help you. Return immediately or you will regret it. Elena turned off her phone, hands shaking. She called Adriana using her landline. She's crazy, Elena said as soon as Adriana answered. She tried to extort money from me. I told you she was a fraud. Are you okay? Do you need me to come over? No, I'm fine, but I don't know what to do. She has my phone number and address. Change your phone number, Adriana suggested, and stay at my place for a few nights. Elena agreed. She quickly packed some clothes and essentials, preparing to leave. But before she could go, the landline rang. Hesitantly, Elena answered. Hello? Elena. A familiar voice came through Sophia, her colleague at the design firm. Are you okay? You didn't come in today, everyone's worried. I'm fine, Elena replied, relieved to hear a familiar voice. I just have some family issues. I'm calling because... Sophia hesitated. This might sound strange, but have you been feeling unwell lately? Hair falling out, fatigue, that sort of thing? Elena's heart raced. How do you know? Sophia was silent for a moment. I think I know something about what's happening to you, but I can't talk over the phone. Can I meet you? I'm on my way to Adriana's, Elena replied, feeling bewildered. Can you come there? Sure. Send me the address. An hour later, Elena, Adriana, and Sophia sat in Adriana's small living room, 3 hot teas before them. Elena had just finished recounting everything that had happened. So she tried to extort money from you? Sophia nodded. Not surprising. But how did you know I was having trouble? Elena asked. Sophia looked down at her tea. Because I have experience with these things. My family has traditions. What kind of traditions? Adriana asked suspiciously. My family has connections to the spiritual world, Sophia said, her voice so low that the other two had to lean in to hear. My uncle is a caballo, a person whom spirits can possess to communicate with this world. Adriana snorted, but Elena signaled for her to be quiet. Go on, Sophia. I know about trabajo's witchcraft workings. I know how they function, how they're created, and how to remove them. Sophia looked directly into Elena's eyes. And I know you're affected by a very powerful trabajo. You're joking, right? Adriana blurted out. No, I'm very serious. Sophia looked at Adriana. You don't have to believe me, but let me help Elena if she wants. Elena hesitated. After her experience with the strange woman, she was very cautious. But Sophia was a colleague, someone she knew and trusted. Can you help me for free? Elena asked carefully. Sophia laughed. Of course. People who truly have abilities never charge for helping others. That's the first sign to distinguish real from fake. So what do you need me to do? First, I need to know exactly what kind of trabajo was performed. From what you describe, it sounds like an amarre de muerto, a binding with the dead. Sophia explained. Someone used your hair from the lost comb to link you with an unrestful spirit, forcing it to follow and harm you. How do I escape it? Elena asked. We need to perform a ritual called desentierro, unburying. It will sever the connection and return the spirit to where it belongs. And return it to the person who sent it, Elena asked, recalling the strange woman's words. Sophia nodded. Exactly. The person who created the trabajo will face its consequences. What do we need for this ritual? Adriana asked, still skeptical but becoming interested. Simpler than you think, Sophia smiled. Elena, you need to wear a red ribbon around your wrist for 1 full day from sunrise to sunset, then remove it and give it to me. I'll take care of the rest. That's it. Elena was surprised. The actual ritual is more complex, but you don't need to know the details. The important thing is that the ribbon must contact your skin for a full day, absorbing your energy. Elena looked at her wrist where she was wearing a red bracelet, a gift from Adriana on her recent birthday. Would this bracelet work? She asked, pointing to it. I've been wearing it for weeks. Sophia examined the bracelet closely, then nodded. Perfect. It's already saturated with your energy. May I have it? Elena removed the bracelet, handing it to Sophia. Are you sure this will work? I can't promise anything, Sophia admitted. But I'll do my best. Trust me. The three women parted ways. Sophia took the red bracelet, promising to contact Elena after completing the ritual. 2 days later, Sophia called Elena, her voice full of excitement. It's done. I performed the ritual last night under the full moon. I thank you, Elena said. How do I know it worked? The person who sent the trabajo will begin to feel the consequences, Sophia replied. And you'll see your condition gradually improve. Elena still wasn't sure what to believe, but she thanked Sophia again. Over the following week, Elena noticed subtle changes. Her hair seemed to stop falling out. She slept better, no longer plagued by nightmares or the feeling of being watched. Energy slowly returned, and she no longer felt inexplicably tired. But the most notable change was the sudden absence of a colleague, Victor, the design team leader. He abruptly called in sick, and when he returned a week later, he looked pale and gaunt. What happened to him? Elena asked another colleague. Nobody knows, the colleague whispered. Doctors can't find the cause. He says he feels like his energy is being drained, can't eat, can't sleep. Elena felt a chill. She remembered how Victor always stared at her in meetings, how he constantly found reasons to criticize her work, how he had once invited her to dinner and became cold after being rejected. She called Sophia that evening. Was it Victor? She asked as soon as Sophia answered. Sophia was silent for a moment. I cannot confirm or deny, but if it was him, he's paying the price for what he did. I don't want him to die, Elena said, feeling concerned. Don't worry, Sophia reassured her. The ritual doesn't kill, it merely returns what was sent. He'll be ill for a time, then recover with a lesson in karma. Elena wasn't entirely convinced, but she accepted Sophia's explanation. She still decided to visit the curandera in Hidalgo, whom her father had recommended just to be sure. The woman in Hidalgo, an elderly lady with long white hair and bright eyes, confirmed that Elena had been freed from the trabajo. That young woman helped you, she said, but you still need to protect yourself in the future. This world is full of envy and malice. She gave Elena a small silver pendant, a hand with an eye in the palm. Wear it, she instructed. It will help you. Elena returned to Mexico City with a sense of relief. Life gradually returned to normal. Victor eventually recovered, though he seemed to avoid Elena. Sophia and Elena became close friends, often having lunch together. Thank you for everything, Elena said during one such lunch. I don't know what to believe, but I know you helped me. No need for thanks, Sophia smiled. Just be careful with what you lose. Sometimes the smallest things, like a comb, a strand of hair, can become bridges for dangerous things. As they prepared to leave, Elena noticed an older woman watching her from a nearby table. The same strange woman who had approached her on the street weeks before. She said nothing, just stared at Elena with hateful eyes. But as Elena and Sophia stood to leave, the woman slightly smiled, a cold, calculating smile. Elena suddenly realized a frightening truth. This woman and Victor might have been working together. Perhaps she had performed the trabajo for him, then deliberately approached Elena to extort money. But she had miscalculated. Elena had found genuine help, not from scammers exploiting others' fears. That evening, as Elena was preparing for bed, her phone buzzed a message from an unknown number. You think you've won, Elena. This is just the beginning. There are spirits that no ritual can banish, and one of them knows your name. Elena deleted the message, refusing to let it disturb her mind. She knew it was just empty threats from a failed scammer. But as she turned off the lights and prepared to sleep, she couldn't help noticing a soft whisper, very soft, coming from a dark corner of the room. Elena. Elena. Bound souls. Laura Vasquez stared at the wet handprint on her bathroom mirror at 3 a.m., her blood running cold. It was too large to belong to her 4-year-old son, Mateo, and too small for her husband, Javier's hand. And they were both away at her in-laws' house. She was completely alone. Or at least she should have been. 6 months earlier, life had seemed perfect as Laura ran her hand along the wall of their new home, feeling the warmth of the afternoon sun through the large windows. This 2-story house with a small garden in the suburbs of Mexico City represented a new beginning for her small family, her husband Javier, their 4-year-old son Mateo, and herself. The house was the result of years of saving and hard work. "What do you think?" Javier asked, embracing her from behind. "Worth the wait," Laura nodded, smiling. "Perfect. Mateo will have space to run around and we can escape the city noise." "Mom!" Mateo ran in, eyes bright with excitement. "I have my own room, and there's a big tree outside my window." Laura bent down to hug her son. Life was finally heading in the right direction. After years of struggle, they deserved happiness. The move went smoothly. Within a week, everything was in place. Laura felt as if the house had belonged to them forever. Javier returned to work at his accounting firm while she worked remotely for an online news site. Mateo loved his new kindergarten and quickly made friends with neighborhood children. One evening, while checking emails, a Facebook Messenger notification appeared on Laura's screen. A name she hadn't thought about in many years, Daniel Herrera. Laura hesitated before opening the message. Daniel was the younger brother of Ricardo, her close high school friend who had died from a drug overdose at just 18. A tragedy that had deeply affected everyone who knew him. "Hello, Laura. Not sure if you remember me. I'm Daniel Ricardo's brother. I accidentally saw you in the suggested friends list. How have you been?" Laura smiled sadly. Of course she remembered Daniel the boy, 2 years older than Ricardo, always hanging around when they studied together. Daniel had always seemed fascinated by Laura, though she never encouraged it. "Hi, Daniel. Of course I remember you. Great to reconnect. Life's been good, married with a son now, and we just moved into a new house. How are you?" They exchanged a few messages. Daniel shared that he had become a software engineer, was still single, and lived not far from Laura's new home. The conversation flowed easily, and Laura felt good reconnecting with a piece of her past, even one associated with painful memories. "I'm really glad I found you," Daniel messaged. "Ricardo always spoke of you with such admiration. He would be proud of who you've become." Laura felt a pang in her heart, remembering her lost friend. "Thank you, Daniel. I still miss him." The conversation ended with promises to stay in touch. Laura didn't think much about it until a week later Daniel messaged asking for her address. "I'll be in your area this weekend. Perhaps I could stop by to say hello. Would be great to see you again after all these years." Laura hesitated. Part of her wanted to maintain the connection to her past, to Ricardo's memory. But another part was cautious about Daniel's sudden interest. Eventually she decided to share her address. "Javier would love to meet you," she messaged, deliberately emphasizing her husband's presence. On Sunday, Daniel visited with a bottle of wine and a small toy for Mateo. He had changed from the teenager Laura once knew, taller, thinner, with deep-set eyes and a cautious smile. Javier welcomed him warmly, and the meeting went pleasantly with stories about their youth and updates on current lives. "She was always the smartest in class," Daniel told Javier. "Ricardo and I struggled with homework while Laura finished it in a flash." Laura felt strange hearing Daniel talk about her as if he had been a significant part of her life, when in reality he had been just a peripheral figure in her memories of Ricardo. When Daniel left, he hugged Laura, holding on slightly longer than comfortable. "I'm so glad I found you," he whispered. "This is the beginning of something wonderful." That night in bed, Laura told Javier about the true nature of her relationship with Daniel. He always seemed too interested in me, she explained. Ricardo used to joke that Daniel had feelings for me, but I never encouraged it. I'm not surprised, Javier smiled. You're still very attractive, but he seems like a good guy. Maybe he just wants to reconnect with the past. Laura nodded, but an uneasy feeling lingered in her mind. There was something about Daniel, about the way he looked at her, that made her uncomfortable. In the following days, Daniel began appearing more frequently. He always had a reason wanting to borrow a book, dropping by to deliver a gift for Mateo, happening to pass by and deciding to visit. He even tried to befriend Javier, inviting him for beers and discussing sports. Laura didn't want to appear rude, but Daniel's increasing presence started to bother her. There were times when she caught him looking at her in a way that sent chills down her spine. One evening, when Mateo was asleep and Laura was working late, her phone rang. Daniel. "Sorry to call so late," he said, "but I found some old photos of Ricardo and thought you might want to see them. Could I stop by tomorrow?" "Javier won't be home," Laura replied, deliberately making this clear. "He's on a business trip for a few days." "Oh," Daniel replied, his voice suddenly more excited. "Then perhaps I'll come by in the evening after Mateo is asleep. We can talk without interruptions." "I don't think that's a good idea," Laura said frankly. "Maybe when Javier gets back." "I understand," Daniel cut in, his tone shifting to coldness. "No problem. See you another time." Laura hung up, feeling both guilty and relieved. Perhaps she should set clearer boundaries. That night Laura dreamed about Ricardo, not the teenage Ricardo she had known, but an older, pale, and distorted version. In the dream he tried to warn her about something, but no sound came from his lips. Laura woke up with a racing heart, cold sweat on her forehead. She reached for her phone. 3 a.m. The room was pitch black, but she had a strong feeling she wasn't alone. She turned on the light, looked around. Nothing. Just a dream, she told herself. But when she stepped into the bathroom, she saw something that froze the blood in her veins, a damp handprint on the mirror, too large for Mateo's hand, too small for Javier's. The following morning, Laura tried to forget about the handprint on the mirror. Perhaps Javier had left it before departing, or maybe it was just condensation forming a strange shape. She focused on taking Mateo to school and working, trying to maintain normal routines. But as she arrived home after picking up Mateo, a familiar car parked outside made her heart sink. Daniel's black sedan. "Hello, Laura." He stepped out of the car, a bright smile on his lips. "I thought I'd stop by to see how you and Mateo are doing while Javier is away." "We're fine," Laura replied, her voice tense. "But today isn't a good time. I have a lot of work." Daniel acted as if he hadn't heard. "I brought pizza," he held up a box, "and some ice cream for Mateo." "He likes ice cream, doesn't he?" "Ice cream," Mateo exclaimed excitedly, jumping up and down. Laura sighed. She couldn't refuse after her son's reaction. "All right, but only for a while." Daniel entered the house as if he belonged there. He knew exactly where everything was, taking plates from the kitchen cabinet without asking. Laura felt uncomfortable with his familiarity in her space. During the meal, Daniel focused his attention on Mateo, asking about his school friends and favorite toys. The boy was immediately drawn to the strange man's interest. "Do you want to see my new superhero?" Mateo asked, eyes bright. "Of course," Daniel smiled. "Lead the way." As they went upstairs to Mateo's room, Laura felt a chill. She hurriedly followed, not wanting Daniel alone with her son. In Mateo's room, Daniel sat on the floor playing with the boy and his toy collection. He appeared patient and friendly, but Laura couldn't help noticing how he constantly glanced at her. "When will your dad be home?" Daniel asked Mateo, his voice as if merely curious. "Friday," Mateo replied. "3 more days." "Oh, so you and Mom have a lot of alone time," Daniel said, his voice light, but his eyes looking at Laura meaningfully. "Daniel," Laura said firmly, "I think it's time to wrap this up. We need to prepare dinner." "I could stay for dinner," he suggested. "I can help cook." No, thank you. I prefer private time with my son. Daniel looked at her intently for a moment, then nodded. I understand. Perhaps another time. As they walked downstairs, Laura felt relieved that he wasn't making trouble. But at the door, Daniel suddenly grabbed her wrist. I know what you feel, he said, his voice lowering. You and I, we have a connection. You feel it, don't you? Laura pulled her hand away. Daniel, I think you're misunderstanding. I'm very happy with Javier. We're just old friends, and that's all. Oh, don't say that. Daniel shook his head, his expression darkening. Ricardo always said you were special. He said you were understanding, that you saw things others didn't. Ricardo has been gone a long time, Laura said, trying to keep her voice calm. We need to move on with our lives. He's still here, Daniel suddenly said, eyes widening. He still talks to me. About you. Laura felt a chill. I think you should go. Daniel looked at her for a long moment, then nodded and stepped out the door. I'll be back, he said, not as a promise but as a threat. As the door closed, Laura quickly locked it and leaned against the wall, her heart pounding. Something was very wrong with Daniel. She took out her phone, wanting to call Javier, but hesitated. She didn't want to worry him during his business trip. Instead, she called her best friend Claudia. I don't like the way he looks at me, Laura confided after relating everything. And the things he said about Ricardo, they're scary. Sounds like he has psychological issues, Claudia agreed. Be careful, Laura. Maybe you should stay with your parents until Javier returns. No, I don't want to overreact. Maybe he's just lonely or socially awkward. I'll talk to Javier when he gets back. That night after Mateo was asleep, Laura checked all doors and windows twice before going to bed. She tried to read but couldn't concentrate. Every small sound in the house made her jump. Finally, she turned off the light and tried to sleep. But sleep didn't come easily. In the darkness, Laura began to dream, a vivid dream, terrifyingly real. In it, she returned home, but the house looked as if it had been abandoned for decades, walls cracked, paint-peeling, weeds growing all over the yard. She entered, calling for Javier and Mateo, but no one answered. She walked upstairs, each step creating an eerie creaking sound. At the end of the hallway, a door was ajar, dim light emanating from inside. She slowly approached, pushed the door open. Inside was a strange altar decorated with black candles, photos of herself, and symbols Laura didn't recognize. In the center of the altar was a plate, and on it... Laura woke up screaming, drenched in sweat. She quickly turned on the light, scanning the room. Nothing unusual, just a nightmare. But as she tried to calm herself, the doorbell rang, tearing through the silence of the night. Laura looked at the clock, 2 a.m. Her heart pounded as she crept downstairs, not turning on any lights. She peered through the peephole but saw no one. "Who is it?" she called, voice trembling. No answer. Laura returned to her bedroom, checking on Mateo. The boy was still sound asleep. She decided to call Javier regardless of the hour. "I'm sorry for calling so late," she said when he answered, voice groggy, "but strange things are happening." She told him about Daniel, about the doorbell, and about the nightmare. Javier listened, becoming increasingly alert. "I'll come home as soon as possible," he promised. "Perhaps tomorrow. Meanwhile, call your parents. I don't want you to be alone." Laura agreed, but after hanging up, she felt a strange sensation, as if someone was standing right behind her. She whirled around, but no one was there. Just a cold breeze passing through, even though all windows were closed. The next morning, Laura decided to take Mateo to stay with her parents until Javier returned. As she was packing their things, her phone rang an unknown number. "Laura Vasquez," an unfamiliar male voice asked. "Yes, that's me." "This is Officer Ramirez. I'm calling about Daniel Herrera. Do you know him?" Laura's heart pounded. "Yes, I know him. What's wrong?" "His car was found abandoned near your house this morning, doors open and keys still in the ignition. We can't reach him, and your number was the most recent call in his phone." Laura felt a cold shiver run down her spine. I don't know. He visited us yesterday afternoon but left around 6 p.m. So you didn't see or hear anything unusual after that?" Laura hesitated, thinking about the doorbell at 2 a.m. Someone rang my doorbell in the middle of the night, but when I checked, no one was there. I see, the officer said, his tone more serious. We'll continue investigating. If you hear from him or think of anything else, please contact us immediately. After the call, Laura couldn't help feeling anxious. Despite her feelings about Daniel, she didn't want anything bad to happen to him. She took Mateo to her parents as planned, explaining that she needed time to prepare for a surprise event at work, a small lie to avoid worrying them. When she returned home alone, Laura felt the silence like a living entity, heavy and oppressive. She decided to focus on work to distract herself, but couldn't stop thinking about Daniel's sudden disappearance. Late in the afternoon, the doorbell rang again. Laura's heart raced as she slowly approached the door, looking through the peephole. 2 police officers stood outside. "May we come in?" Officer Ramirez asked after she opened the door. "We have some additional questions about Daniel Herrera." Laura agreed, leading them to the living room. "Have you found him?" "No," the second officer said. "But we found this in his car." He held out a sealed evidence bag. Inside was a stack of photos, all of Laura. Laura at work, Laura picking up Mateo from school, Laura shopping at the supermarket, Laura in her backyard, all taken from a distance, clearly without her consent. "My God," Laura whispered, feeling sick. "He was stalking me." "It appears so," Officer Ramirez nodded. "We also found his journal. He wrote quite extensively about you. It seems he's been obsessed for a long time." "I don't understand." Laura shook her head, stunned. "I only reconnected with him a few weeks ago, after years without contact." "According to the journal, he's been tracking you for years. He knew when you got married, when you had your son, when you moved to this house. The recent contact was just the next step in his plan." Laura felt her legs weaken. "Where do you think he is now?" "We don't know," the officer admitted, "but we think you should be careful. Perhaps stay with relatives until we find him." Laura nodded, feeling a deep fear taking hold. Daniel wasn't just a lonely man with inappropriate feelings, he was a dangerous stalker. After the police left promising to patrol the area regularly, Laura called Javier, telling him everything. "I'll be home first thing tomorrow," he said, voice worried. "Go to your parents right now. Don't stay in the house alone." "I just need to grab a few more things," Laura replied. "Then I'll leave immediately." When she hung up, it was already dark. Laura hurried upstairs, stuffing clothes and essential items into a bag. She wanted to leave the house as soon as possible. As she came down the stairs, the lights suddenly went out, plunging the entire house into darkness. Laura's heart hammered against her ribs as she stood frozen, trying to adjust her eyes to the darkness. "Just a fuse," she told herself, trying to stay calm, "or a power outage." She took out her phone, turned on the flashlight, and carefully descended the stairs. When she reached the ground floor, she heard a sound, a soft rustling from the living room. "Is anyone there?" she called, voice shaking. No answer, just a heavy silence. Laura slowly moved toward the front door, deciding to get out and call the police. But as she approached the door, the flashlight illuminated a figure, a man standing between her and the exit. "Hello, Laura," Daniel said, his voice strangely calm. "We need to talk." Laura froze, the flashlight beam showing Daniel's face. He looked different. His eyes more sunken, hair disheveled, clothes wrinkled as if he'd worn them for days. "Daniel," Laura said, trying to keep her voice steady despite her racing heart. "The police are looking for you. They're very concerned." "Concerned," Daniel laughed, a joyless sound. "They're not concerned for me. They're concerned for you." "I don't understand." Laura took a step back. "Why are you here? Why did you cut the power?" "I needed to speak with you privately." Daniel moved closer. "No police, no Javier, just you and me." "We can talk, but you're scaring me," Laura said, her hand searching for anything she could use as a weapon. "Why not turn the lights on and talk like normal people?" "Normal?" Daniel scoffed. "There's nothing normal about our situation, Laura. Nothing normal about what I feel, about what Ricardo tells me." Laura's heart pounded harder. Ricardo is gone, Daniel. He can't speak to you. You're wrong. Daniel shook his head vigorously. He's here. He's always been here. And he's told me the truth about you. What truth? That you're special. That you're the only one who can understand me. That you and I belong together. Laura knew she needed to prolong the conversation while finding a way to escape. Daniel, I don't think Ricardo would want this. He was my friend, and he would want us both to be happy. That's exactly what he wants, Daniel shouted, suddenly angry. He wants us happy, together. Not with Javier. Not with this normal, boring life. Laura realized with horror that Daniel wasn't just obsessed, he was delusional. She needed to get out of there immediately. Daniel, maybe you're right, she said, trying to soothe him. Why don't we go somewhere public to discuss this A restaurant? Too late for that. Daniel shook his head, stepping closer. I've prepared everything. Upstairs. Everything is ready for us. Laura remembered her nightmare, the altar in the upstairs room. She felt a cold dread. She had to escape now. In a sudden movement, Laura threw her phone at Daniel, creating a distraction, then bolted toward the back door. She heard Daniel's angry shout and footsteps chasing her. She reached the back door, struggled with the lock in the darkness, heart pounding. Finally, the door opened, and she ran into the backyard, heading for the fence. If she could climb over it, she could reach the nearest neighbor's house. But as she reached the fence, a hard blow to her head sent her crashing down. Blinding pain clouded her vision, and she felt herself being dragged back toward the house. "Don't make me do this, Laura!" Daniel's voice came through the fog of pain. "I don't want to hurt you." Laura tried to resist, but she felt her strength leaving her body. Eventually, darkness engulfed her. When Laura regained consciousness, she found herself lying on the floor of the guest bedroom. Her hands and feet were bound with rope. Her head throbbed with pain, and she felt warm liquid trickling down one side of her face, blood. The room was illuminated by dozens of black candles placed on the floor, casting eerie, dancing shadows on the walls. In the center of the room, Daniel was kneeling before a temporary altar exactly like in Laura's nightmare. The altar was covered with dark red cloth filled with photos of Laura and Mateo, strange symbols drawn with something that looked like blood, and a small doll resembling Laura pierced with pins. Daniel was mumbling something, rocking back and forth. He wasn't wearing a shirt, his upper body covered with hand-drawn symbols similar to those on the altar. "Daniel," Laura called, her voice hoarse with fear. "Please stop this. Let me go." Daniel paused, slowly turning around. In the flickering candlelight, his face no longer looked human, eyes wide and wild mouth twisted into a grotesque smile. "You're awake," he said, his voice unlike his previous one. "Good. The ritual requires you to be conscious." "What ritual?" Laura asked, trying to pull at her restraints while keeping him talking. "Amarrar un muerto," Daniel replied. "Binding the dead. I will link my brother's soul to you so he can be with you forever, and through him I will be with you too." Laura felt nauseated. "Daniel, this isn't what Ricardo would want. Think about him." "I always think about him," Daniel screamed. "Every day since he left, every day since you abandoned him." "I didn't abandon him." Laura shook her head, tears flowing. "I tried to help him, but he didn't want help." "Lies!" Daniel shouted, his hand gripping a ritual knife. "He loved you, and you turned your back." Laura realized with horror that in Daniel's distorted mind she was responsible for Ricardo's death. No logic could persuade him otherwise. "Daniel, if you hurt me, you'll never escape this crime." She tried a different approach. "The police are looking for you. Javier will be home in the morning." "No one can stop us." Daniel shook his head. "After tonight, we will be connected forever." He turned back to the altar, taking a small piece of cloth from his pocket. "I've kept it for years," he said, his voice suddenly gentle, almost dreamlike. "Your hair from a brush Ricardo took from your room during a school trip. He kept it as a memento, and after he died, I kept it." Daniel opened the cloth, revealing a few long, dark strands of hair. He gently placed them in a small bowl beside the altar. "I also have his ashes," he continued, taking another small bag. "Not all of them, of course. Just a little I took from Mother's urn." Laura felt sick as Daniel poured some ashes into the same bowl with her hair. "When I mix them," he said, "and burn them with our blood, Ricardo's soul will be bound to you. He will follow you, be part of you." Laura struggled against her restraints, desperate now. She saw Daniel pick up the ritual knife, approaching her with a determined expression. "This won't hurt much," he promised, kneeling beside her. "Just a small cut to get your blood." As Daniel reached for her arm, a loud crash came from downstairs, the sound of a door being forced open. "Laura," Javier's voice called out. "Laura, are you here?" Daniel froze, his face contorting with rage. "No," he hissed. "Not now." Laura seized the opportunity. "Javier, upstairs, help me." Daniel slapped his hand over her mouth, but it was too late. Heavy footsteps pounded up the stairs. "I'll finish this later," Daniel whispered, standing up with the knife in his hand, "after I deal with the intruder." He moved to the doorway, waiting. When Javier appeared, Daniel lunged with the knife, but Javier was prepared. He'd seen the broken door, the darkness, the candle glow from upstairs. He dodged the attack and tackled Daniel to the ground. The two men struggled, rolling across the hallway. Laura worked frantically at her restraints, finally managing to free one hand. She untied her feet, then ran to help her husband. Daniel had gained the upper hand, raising the knife above Javier. Laura grabbed a heavy vase from a nearby table and smashed it against Daniel's head. He collapsed, unconscious. The police arrived minutes later, alerted by neighbors who had heard the commotion. Daniel was arrested, still unconscious. The paramedics treated Laura's head wound, which fortunately wasn't serious. In the following days, the full extent of Daniel's obsession came to light. His apartment was filled with photos of Laura journals detailing his fantasies and research into ancient binding rituals. Psychiatric evaluation diagnosed him with schizophrenia. A month after the incident, Laura visited a curandero, a traditional healer, to confirm no spirit had been bound to her during the incomplete ritual. The ritual was not completed, the old man reassured her after examining her. "But be cautious. An unfinished curse can be more dangerous than a completed one." "What do you mean?" Laura asked. "When a ritual is properly completed, it has rules, boundaries. When left unfinished, it's unpredictable. Like a wounded animal, more dangerous than a healthy one." Laura thanked him, trying not to let his words disturb her too much. Life had to go on. Over time, the family began to heal. They installed a security system, and Laura started therapy to deal with the trauma. Mateo thankfully had been spared the worst of it, having been at his grandparents' house during the attack. 6 months later, they received news that Daniel had been sentenced to a psychiatric facility, diagnosed with severe mental illness. Laura felt a mixture of relief and relief that he was contained pity for the broken mind that had once belonged to Ricardo's brother. "It's finally over," Javier said, holding Laura close. She nodded, wanting desperately to believe it. The following week, a package arrived at their door. No return address. Inside was a doll identical to the one on Daniel's altar, made to look exactly like Laura. Attached was a note, "I completed the ritual in the facility. We will meet again soon." Laura dropped the doll, hands shaking. She immediately called the police, who promised to investigate and contact the psychiatric facility. That night, after checking all doors and windows, setting the alarm, and putting Mateo to bed, Laura stood in the bathroom, staring at her reflection. She looked better than she had in months, the fear gradually fading from her eyes. As she turned to leave the bathroom, mirror suddenly fogged up despite no change in temperature. Before her horrified eyes, words began to form in the condensation. "Ricardo says hello." Laura screamed, backing away. Javier came running, but by the time he arrived, the mirror was clear again. "There was a message," Laura insisted, pointing at the mirror. "It said Ricardo says hello." Javier looked concerned. "There's nothing there, Laura. Maybe it's the stress." "I know what I saw," Laura cried. then lowered her voice, not wanting to wake Mateo. I'm not imagining things. Javier held her close. I believe you. We'll call the police again tomorrow, make sure Daniel is still secure. But as they left the bathroom, neither noticed the wet handprint slowly forming on the mirror, too large for Mateo's hand, too small for Javier's. And in the silence of the night, a soft whisper echoed through the empty hallway. The ritual is complete. We are bound forever.